I'm in conversation with Dr. Bimol Akoijam, who is an MP from Manipur from the Congress Party. Sir, we've been seeing Manipur burning for the past 3 years, and there have been sporadic incidents even after 3 years of the unrest. The latest incident being of the Bishnupur. What would you like to say of the present situation?
See, one of the first things we should realize is that the condition has never been normalized. What they have done is just the opposite. What is essentially an abnormal condition has been normalized, sought to be normalized, as if this is a new norm, that you have all kinds of activities going on, unconstitutional things. Like take, for example, buffer zone. When we go to a foreign country to stop a fight between two warring ethnic groups or warring communities, strategically to separate them, and international forces can guard this, what is called buffer zones, to avoid that conflict. You can't quite do that inside the country because you have an additional responsibility, because when you stop people from going to this or that side, what you end up doing is that, you are this community, therefore you can't get access to this, even if you have a house there, if you have public facilities there. It's like, take simple, if the rest of the country don't understand this, imagine we have so many riots, communal violence in this country. It is in the bone marrow of this country. The communal violence has been happening. If studies have shown the maximum violence happened is going to be a century now. The maximum communal violence in India happened in 1920s, 25, 26. And this is 2025, 26. It's almost a year in the history of communal violence in this country. But you have never segregated Muslims and Hindus, for example. So you can't go to this airport because it is in the Hindu area. You can't go to this railway station because this is in a Muslim area. Government can't do that, keep the people separate. Because you have this responsibility to ensure that they get to this access, because it's part of their fundamental rights. But unfortunately, this government and the rest of the country seem also to take it as a normal things, that you can stop the Hindus from getting access to a airport because that is in the Muslim area, the hospital is in the Hindu area, therefore Muslim can't go there. That is exactly what government has been doing for the last 3 years. And rest of the country is almost like a silent spectator to this macabre situation, completely unconstitutional. People like me can't even visit. They didn't allow me. The point is that this is a member of parliament, this is his constituency, and they will arrange the necessary security to allow me to visit, to ensure that my life, instead they will threaten, saying that your life will be in danger, we can't take responsibility. Then what the hell you are doing there as a security forces, as a law enforcing agency? So this has been going on in our state of Manipur. This is why I said this is essentially an abnormal condition, unconstitutional condition. You are normalizing it as if this is a new norm. This violence is nothing but the manifestation of that abnormality. Sometimes you can get to see it, sometimes you don't get to see that one. So this is symptomatic of what the government has been doing. So it's never been normal.
Any changes after the new government which came to power in the state? Do you see any changes, or and who do you put in your view, who is more responsible, the state, the center, which government?
I would take it is the government of India is more responsible. See, they have this responsibility to ensure that the constitutional order works. If the state machinery in the state government or administration fails, they have all the constitutional provisions to take care of it. They didn't do that. And they imposed precedent rule not because constitutional order has collapsed or law and order situation has gone out of hand. It is not because of that they imposed precedence rule. It is to save their skin. They have a proxy government. I have warned this at the beginning of the crisis in 2023 itself on national media. This erosion of federal structures, that the center is remote controlling law and order, despite the fact that you have a state government there, is completely made redundant, and center is calling the shot. I said this erosion of federal structure. Today it may be Manipur, and this will be normalized wherever is the powerful center can dictate terms, especially with smaller states. That erosion has not reversed completely. That's the sense I get it. Take, for example, this new government they have installed. It is the prerogative of the chief ministers and a member of the ruling party to decide, who's the leader, then also to appoint who will be the minister, who will get what kind of portfolios, according to the constitutional scheme. It is the prerogative of the chief ministers. This has not been able to be implemented. It's quite obvious that they have not been able to resolve this one. There are a lot of bickering within the party, of that ruling party, and that is one of the factors which have aggravated. The Prime Minister have never called them. I have said at the beginning, this is again going back to 2023, if Modi wanted, he could have called all his worrying MLAs and said, I can't allow our citizens to suffer because of your internal bickering. They didn't do it. He deliberately allows it to go on like this. You see that when they have the will, the center has the will to impose that, they can impose that one. They don't do that either. Within their party I'm talking about. And enable the state forces and state government to function according to the constitutional order. They have not done it. So I will squarely blame the government of India. If the state government fails, if they have done something inappropriate, the government of India should take actions, but they didn't do it. It's all short-sighted, very twisted understanding, and they manipulated constitutional schemes. They had a facade. I have been calling, and you check all my interviews in the last 3 years. You have a proxy government there. You have scapegoat and local satraps. They've been putting it up. So I think the government of India has to take the major responsibility. But this doesn't mean that our state leaders are not responsible. So I pity them, in fact. They are acting like as if they're living in an empire. The me lord sitting miles away from your place is dictating terms to that, and they are meekly succumbing to that kind of a pressure. To that extent, I blame them and I pity them. In fact, you remember that last emperor of China, and these Japanese propped them up in Manchuria, and then used them as a puppet. So a lot of our ruling class are acting like that Emperor Pui of China then during the Second World War. It's very pathetic. So to that extent, I'll blame the state leader. But if you think in terms of a national or constitutional sense, government of India has to take squarely they are responsible for this violence.
Do you think there is, what I get to learn from what you're saying, is there administrative bias, and there should be, the neutrality is lacking?
On what part? Whose part?
On part of the state government.
No, I'm not talking about state government. It's a union government. There are people, they have communalized, jeopardized the police force. In this country, you must realize the primary institutions to deal with the law and order is with the state police. And you have allowed it to be so delegitimized. And without police, how do you expect the law and order to be maintained? If you think that there are rotten apples and some people are done, you should correct it. You can't throw that institutions out, and you think like an emperor or empire, you can run the law and order with army and the central security forces. Which constitutional schemes allows that without the state police? And on the other hand, look at that. For series of people have been accusing against the central security forces of colluding with one group or the other. This has been happening. But it's like a holy cow, you can't accuse them. You have not investigated why the police and the paramilitary and the central security forces don't work together. The coordination, these are not international troops. Manipur police is like another country's contribution, and CRP is another country's contribution, and Indian Army is some other country's contribution, as if you are doing an international peacekeeping force. You are supposed to allow that all these forces are part of the Indian state. You should be able to coordinate them to deal with this. Instead of that, you try to delegitimize Manipur police. On the other hand, you try to delegitimize the paramilitary forces. And you just keep on watching on that. That is the bias. Even you said right now, look at this. All these new events happen. This is not the first time. Despite the fact that our central security forces are positioned there, how come this violence continue like this? It has happened. How is that the central security forces allows bunkers to exist as if it is an international conflict? The definition of state is that you claim the monopoly of the legitimate use of physical force. When you are not able to do it, then you become a failed state. That's why we talk about failed state when Afghanistan's during those days. The warlord takes over certain areas, the central authority can't impose his will. Then Indian state has been allowing that. We talk about civil war-like situation. Can India have a civil war within? In Manipur, you are looking at it as if it is a separate country with a civil war-like situation, and Manipur police is something like a local, and you have CRPF is coming from some other places, instead of looking at it as an Indian state's problem. You have been doing this. This nonsense and this abnormalities has been allowed, including some vested interests in the so-called mainstream, without even presenting the facts and figures. The arms have not been recovered. That's why you still have this firing. There are video images where sophisticated weapons wielding people are roaming free, even today, especially in the hill areas. Fortunately, at least in the central districts like Imphal and Thawal and others, we don't see that picture anymore. But you still continue to see those pictures in the hill areas coming up. You have armed groups moving around in the presence of central security forces. Who are those people? I'm talking about right now, these days. Who are those people? If those are part of the Sioux groups, and the ground rule says that you can't go out of the camp, there are enough visual materials to see it, to take up suo motu cases. Central security forces are there, and people with arms are moving around along with them or in their presence. How does this ambush happen in sniper attack on this Ukhrul? 2 of the Tangkuls were killed on 18th this month. We are bluffing ourselves. The first 3rd of May 2023, you saw AK-47 wielding people in Torbung areas in the afternoon itself. And as if you are doing a narrative hijack, arm looting, and this, and Cartouche is a local made licensed gun. You don't realize that there was an AK-47 wielding people at the beginning of the violence itself. Who are those people? With this image, people get alarmed. That's why the gun became a problem. You militarize, you deliberately allow that militarization. You allow these police stations because you have raised the passion with those images. The people started looting guns. And looting guns also happen in the hill areas. Choral Champur gun shop was looted before the looting happened in Imphal. The entire country has not cared about this. I'm saying it fundamentally, if Manipur has been treated like a foreign country, that's the basic issue. You can't have buffer zones, separate people perpetually for 3 years. Try it in the mainland. ये हॉस्पिटल हिंदू की जगह पे है, मुस्लिम नहीं अलाउ करेगा. एयरपोर्ट जो है मुस्लिम के एरिया में, हिंदू नहीं करेगा. झगड़ा होता है तो सेपरेट करके रखो. And you think that these Manipuris have inborn this type of violence. उसका एक पुराना ही से floor of the house में बोलते हैं ये लोग. मैं बोल रहा हूँ इंडिया की खून पे दौर है ये. Hatred, casteism, sexism, communalism is in the blood of being an Indian. Communal violence have happened throughout. I'm telling you, do social science studies. 1925 to 26, maximum violence. the formation of RSS, Gandhi is taking over, the communalism का trajectory देखो, तो post independence तक, आज तक violence कितना हुआ? आपने ऐसे separate करके रखा हुआ है. See, this is what I'm saying. जो देखने का जो आपको जो नजरिया है, the way you look at things, this is, I think this crisis has taught us that how Manipur and Northeast in general and Manipur in particular has been treated. मैंने बहुत बार पूछ चुका हूँ, ये वायलेंस यूपी में होता, बिहार में होता, राजस्थान में होता, मध्य प्रदेश में होता, ये भारत सरकार ये ऐसे होने देते? क्यों होने दिया ऐसा? यही सवाल है. So there's nothing new about this new violence. This is only a manifestation of the fact that you have normalized what is essentially an unconstitutional, illegal order to be the new norm in Manipur.
Has the imposition of central forces and security measures translated into a long-term stability?
सीधी सी बात है. You have अभी तो बदल दिया ना law. CRPC का एक section था 131. You have every square centimeter of Manipur is covered by a central deployment before the crisis. इसके बावजूद, when you have a standing law, public order का chapter है ना इंडिया का criminal law में, you're supposed to intervene. You have 2 divisions of Indian Army, military forces. You have so many central security forces, plus you have 40,000 Manipur police. The Indian state could not create a synergy among all these institutions in a small state with 30 lakh population. बोलते रहते हैं को वो झगड़ा पुराना कुकी नागा के साथ में भी हुआ, ये हुआ, तो मैं भी बोलूँगा कास्ट की झगड़ा होते रहता है इस देश में, हिंदू मुस्लिम की झगड़ा होते रहते हैं. And unfortunately, this is exactly how the colonial Britishers used to think. Communalism is is their natural part of their society, without realizing that they have also contributed in the creation of that phenomenon. Check any non-scholars in this country, ask them how communalism is looked upon as something inherent in our society by the colonial Britishers, and how tribalism is supposed to be a feature of the African society. Exactly today we are doing it in Manipur, as if these violence are natural part of that state. Time लगेगा देखने में, as if Hindu-Muslim crisis is not part of this country. Partition बंटवारा क्यों हुआ? Pakistan क्यों बना? Communalism is in the blood. That's why you still have. अभी तो ज़्यादा हो गया, फिर से आ गया ना, मियाँ किया तो पैसा वो मत दे दो, मुस्लिम हिंदू का से करते रहते हैं. Is it you will going to excuse yourself by saying this is natural in our society? Or you will try to control it? Adopt policies? Will you allow violence to linger on like this? ये सोचने वाली बात है. You can't allow this. Prime Minister has this capacity even not to express regret when you have so many citizens are dying. You have a railway bridge collapse somewhere, you express regret. What this government is doing? I mean, think about this. This crisis, if Manipur survives, well and good. If it survives, I hope it will survive, given its history. But this is going to teach not only the Manipuris, but some of the people in this country how you have been looked upon and how you have been treated by this Indian state, who runs this Indian state today.
Critics argue that there was a delay in the political intervention at the highest level. Do you agree to it?
That's what I'm saying. No, there is not a question of delay. They don't do it still. I have given you examples. I'm saying that this so-called buffer zone stopping an MP, Manipur police office is not allowed there. You are dividing your police force on the communal lines. And 3 years you have not taken measures to how to resolve it. Do you think all the police officers, IPS, are communal people? All of them are communal. And it is Indian police. Manipur police is not Bhutanese police or Chinese police. It's part of the Indian police system. IPS officers are there. I mean, these 3 years, is it a joke?
These officers are not helping the...
No, I'm saying that the government should have done, Major. I'm saying it that you have been allowing this to happen. And even for me, I mean, the more I think about it, and that's what I'm saying. I have said it in interviews on the floor of the House. I'm asking many people, I'm just simple there. Sidhi si baat hai. I'm telling you also. I'm giving interview to your TV. 3 years ago, I have given you interviews, your television. उसमें आप जाके देख लो. ये घटना यूपी में, बिहार में, राजस्थान में होता, कास्ट की वजह से या हिंदू मुस्लिम में, would you have allowed it to happen like this? क्यों आपने किया ऐसा? Do you think that the Prime Minister would not dare to visit if hundreds of people were slaughtered in a violence, a civil war-like situation happened in UP? Because you think UP, Bihar is more Indian than Northeast and Manipur? Is that why you are allowing this? Ye pehle pucho. Without even understanding many things, they are so-called experts. You didn't even allow your investigation inquiry commissions ka report. Pehle 6 mahine ke andar report dalne ke liye bola tha, dene ke liye. Isn't it? When the 4th of June 2023, they constituted this inquiry commission on the violence, and they were supposed to submit it within 6 months. And they keep on extending. This is 3 years. Uska matlab hai you don't want to fix accountability, including what happened to our security forces. How is that despite 2 divisions of Indian Army, one division is paramilitary forces, but operationally they are under Indian Army. There are hundreds and thousands of Central Armed Police in Manipur before the crisis. Police is there. Why you are not able to mobilize in such a small state? You need to fix who are those SP, who are those company commanders, uski aju baju mein jo ghar jalaya gaya. What did you do that? It's not about political parties or politicians. और magistrate साहब, DC साहब क्या सो रहे थे उसी time? The great Indian Army का company commanders and officers, where they सो रहे थे वो लोग. और जो police officer, IPS officer, DSP, inspector, वो लोग क्या कर रहे थे? The inquiry committee must report, answer these questions. You have AFSPA operated area violence. Chorachampur is under AFSPA. Koi kehta hai AFSPA ki wajah. It's a complete chaotic. You should see that Indian Army says that ek ghatna mein drone nahi istemal kiya gaya. NIA aake bola ki usme drone istemal kiya gaya. Who's telling the truth? Chaotic, not able to coordinate among each other. Political parties not able to sit together. Prime Minister allows these people to be like a facade. Shil bana ke aage rakha hua hai. Running the government. And it's yes mein bola tha ki 355 lagu kiya. As if 355 can be imposed. They don't even realize that 355 is a provision. It is a legal and ethical premise for you to impose President's Rule. 356 ke liye banaya gaya hai, 355. And you celebrate when this law and order, which Ambedkar Sahab ne bola tha, this is the sovereign and plenary authority of the state. Yahi remark Constituent Assembly mein bola tha Ambedkar Sahab ne. Baba Sahib ne jo bola tha, ye Supreme Court ka judgment they quoted later on, that law and order is an absolute domain of the state. And when the center intervenes, because it is Manipur, everybody celebrates. You should have taken over completely yourself, according to the constitutional scheme. You didn't do that. Neither you allow the state government to fully function when they are incapable. You still prop them up. Why? Because you wanted to protect yourself. You wanted to blame to these people. Inquiry commission abhi tak nahi lao ke बीच में vested interests has come and publish twisted so-called tribunal reports and others. All kinds of nonsense have been allowed.
How serious is this looting of arms and military activities?
That is a slap on the Indian state. That you allow looting of your weapons from your security forces. That's a slap on the Home Ministry, that's a slap on the Prime Minister and the Defense Minister. That you have a civil war-like situation like the Rwandan crisis in Manipur, that's a slap on the Indian state.
Do you support stronger steps like AFSPA?
It's not a question of stronger. I said जो legally provided है. Forget about AFSPA. CRPC के अंदर में भी है provision. To maintain public order isn't it the responsibility of the Indian? Why do you talk about special laws only? I am just citing it because some people say that afspa hota to hum karte. They should realize that Indian law, Indian constitution has enough provision to avoid. If you wanted to say that every law and order problem and public order में disturbance आ गया लेकिन special law चाहिए तो हर जगह पे लागू की जाए. You apply AFSPA when you have communal violence. Will you do that? And people talking about politician and connection, many of these so-called intellectual in this country, even they don't realize. Within the cookie, you have husband in the armed groups as a chairman, and wife is a politician leader. Sab mile hue hai. You didn't even talk about that when you see AK-47 rifles using cartouches. Hai, ye hai. Am I making sense? We have been distorting. Instead of taking a partisan position, the first thing that we should have realized, it is a public order, law and order problem that the constitutional authority of the Indian state has been challenged in a small state called Manipur. You should have ensured that the law and order and public order is instituted. And whatever constitutional provisions you have, you should have done that one. If the state government has failed, you remove. You take over the law and order. You don't do that. Am I making sense? And you said that only one community or this community, everybody joined in that narrative war. I am saying that कहाँ की कारतूस है? मई का जो 3 तारीख में जो शुरू हुआ था, उसमें AK-47 जो दिखा है, blind हो गए उसमें. Looting हर जगह पे हुआ, and looting is exactly a failure of the Indian state. What did you do after that?
Do you see it as a intelligence failure as well?
Everybody should see it. You tell me that. You answer yourself. If you think normalized central forces a few meters away from the this bomb blast happened. Last time it happened in Nanukong. Why is that happening? आपका आरोपी नहीं था, field के intelligence नहीं था. You don't know anybody who's operating in the hills. किस का group है, किसके साथ arms है. Itana, you can monitor through satellite on Siachen glaciers or the sensitive border areas. Intelligence hai, military intelligence hai. You have special forces, 21 para hai. Many of the special forces are specialized in mountain warfare. If you think these armed groups are roaming around freely in the hill areas, what did you do? Why do we get to see pictures with central forces with many armed people still around? Have you recovered them? Or are they, as people are accusing, are they surrogates? They're surrogates.
What are we doing about the displaced people?
That is also one reason.
Are they being put into the relief camps?
Many people, I have raised these issues. Is there a special package for them? No. And atrocious, it's like putting salt on your, injuries. घर बनाने के लिए 3 लाख, 5 लाख, ऐसे कैसे घर बनाएगा? Every house was flattened. And you have deliberately allowed this communal virus to thrive. And I'm saying it with a sense of pride. Right in the heat of the moment in Imphal, I addressed public meeting, asked them to stand up in the name of a Kuki woman and in the name of a Maitai woman. Tell me which politicians have done this. Right in Imphal, in the height of the crisis.
Women and children have been the worst
That's
hit.
what I said. In Parliament, I mentioned Kuki girls who were killed in Imphal. Tell me any politician from any damn community who are able to do this. When I say 60,000 people were are still languishing in relief camp, only the communal-minded people think that I'm talking for Maitai community. 60,000 is the number of IDPs in Manipur, irrespective of communities. So twisted the mind has become. When I say law and order must be maintained, this violence must be reined in, they said it's communal taking sides. I mean, everything at layer, this is not only the government, our intellectual class, our media. We have done a study on how national media has reported on this. Very subtle ways. So-called liberal judicious people's tribunal, they said, Maitai left Chura Chandpur and cookies were driven out. You realize the play of words. Maitai left and cookies were driven out, playing with games. जो किताब के अंदर लिखा है उसका case, they have a executive summary as if people don't know what does executive summary. Executive summary क्यों लिखा है एक report में, as if Manipuris will not know. I mean, this kind of bluffing has been happening in layers by layers. So, uska major failure is coming from the state. If you have finished your inquiry commission, even if there are problems, then it becomes a document to debate about it. Uska shortcomings kya hai, uska benefit kya hai, but the attempt to fix accountability will come from this judicial inquiry. Nahin? That's a legitimate. Government has instituted an inquiry commission. That's a legitimate one. Then you keep that, so vested interests started publishing twisted reports, taking part in the violence and fueling this crisis all the more. You understand, this is the layers of failure. But the first critical failure comes from abdication of responsibility by the government of India led by Mr. Modi and Mr. Amit Shah. That's clean.
Do you see MPs from across party lines coming together to resolve the crisis? Do you see an initiative coming from the MPs to
you know
cross
that
party lines?
You have heard me in Parliament. It's a moral appeal, it's an ethical appeal when I say ek JPC banaiye. I have said this. We should constitute a JPC. We should visit. This is the part of the country. मैंने बोला Parliament. If the House constitute a JPC, इतना बड़ा crisis है. We know this. We're not trying to, for me, it's not a question of political brownie points. It is an ethical, it's a constitutional thing. It's a very, have you seen this? Two children's, I couldn't see the video.
No, that happened.
There's strong lobby.
Yeah.
And the mother started crying. That part, then I stopped, I couldn't watch. She said, when she gained her consciousness in hospital, she was not even informed. And the boy, before they sleep, good night sleep, मैं क्या बोलूँगा बच्चा ने, Mama, I love you. That's the tragedy. A young woman who lost, जो solid food का जो ceremony होता है, हिंदी में क्या बोलता है उसको?
Anuprashan.
हाँ, अनुप्राशन 2 दिन में करने वाला था वो 5 महीने वाला लड़की जो. Whoever it fires, I think the moral response of the hands of Mr. Amit Shah and Modi's are stained with the blood of innocent people of my state. I'm saying this. They are the prime ministers. He belongs to BJP, but he is our prime minister. No. Mr. Amit Shah may be a BJP guy, but he is our home minister. Can I say that you are my prime minister, you are my home minister? Why did you allow these things to happen? This is the parliament. I am a member of that. Why is that the parliament cannot even spend 3 hours to discuss on Manipur? Bandre Matam में 10 घंटा लगा discussion में. एक JPC बना के जो healing touch जाने का, what's the problem with that? Entire collapse. Indian army, Indian Central Security Armed Police, Manipur Police, administrators, everybody must be fixed for their failure. And we, as parliamentarians, are there. Isn't it? So you are asking, I said, JPC ek form kijiye.
What are the 3 immediate steps that you see to stabilize Manipur?
Things have become very complicated. I think it is a reflection of a deeply prejudiced mind that I realize. इस country का जो एक माहौल है, एक राष्ट्र चेतना जो है ना, उसमें मणिपुर का प्लेस क्या है उसमें? एक उस चेतना में राष्ट्र चेतना का एक हिस्सा होता. Then I realized these things would have been now steps. Now I realize that I am appealing to this Rashtra Chetna to take actions. That's why I said it becomes very complicated. Because this Rashtra Chetna has been framed and constituted over decades. To change that is going to be tough. JPC बनाने का 3 hours discussion parliament में discuss करने का. I know this. because I have been a student of social science for 40 years and taught, studied on communal violence in this country, in Rwanda, in Yugoslavia, is part of my research interest. Partitions, violence. Why is this country is allowing this to happen to Manipur? That answer, we need that to move ahead. Don't look at others. The fundamental thing is, ये कौन सी राष्ट्र चेतना है? उसी ने क्या-क्या सवाल पूछा? As a blaming the people there, they had a communal violence शुरू से, like a colonial people, without realizing that two divisions of army, Central Armed Police Forces, Manipur Police, ये सब Indian state का हिस्सा है. You're supposed to make them coordinate and function to control the violence, to ensure that the citizens' life and properties are protected. You have allowed, once a while you see these pictures and people come, media will talk about it, then they will forget. 3 साल ये चला रहा. So way forward for me has become increasingly difficult. So I think the fundamental thing I need to know in my life, and let the Manipuris also think about this, all the Manipuris, ये राष्ट्र चेतना जो किस type का राष्ट्र चेतना है, which allows Manipur to go through these 3 years like this. But uske up upar, if people can understand, if this is a little complicated and you don't understand this, simple सीधी बात है कि way forward, fix accountability, rein in the violence. All these armed groups and individuals, pick them up, and then you will realize again, this mistake kya hai? Will the institution be able to do that? Because of long armed conflict reasons, counter-insurgency, kya stakeholders hai? Kis ke interests operate on the ground? You see, you understand, even to say that pick up the arms and do that, now I have doubt. Because I know the history of that place. I know what happens when you have a long situation of armed conflict, where the institutions have mechanisms, clandestine way of fighting to save the country. Counter-insurgency bolte usko.
You're talking about the local actors.
No, the entire state institutions. Will they be able to do that? My trust is that there is a drastic overhaul and political will on the part of the government of India to treat Manipur as a part of the Indian state, as a 19th state of the Union, and use all our armed forces to clean it up, and including within this institutional mechanism all those vested interests. The political class should be able to distinguish that. Pick up all these arms, rethink about the way you have handled these armed groups, whether you have used them as a part of your counter-insurgency or otherwise. Rethink all of these things and rethink afresh. Treat them as a part of this country. And then we will move ahead. It will be solved. I have talked to many army officers. There are a lot of them. They said, "Ye thoda clarity hota political class hai." A lot of police, senior police officers se leke retired army officers se. This is nothing. Within 1 week, we will finish. Normalcy will return. India is a big country. You remember that? We have that capacity. Our people were professionally trained. You have local complication because of the armed conflict area. But entire country, the institution of the army, the institution of the central security forces, majority of them are untouched by that dynamics. So if you clean it up, it will not even take 1 week. Manipur will return to normal. You are doing politics over this. You understand what I'm saying? And then BJP, this party is also another strange thing. Short-term electoral gain के लिए कुछ भी कर सकता है ये लोग. The newspaper में आप जाके देखो. I'm not saying that. Many of these armed groups, they had understanding before the election. Affidavit had court में, they keep on denying it, but it's there in the local newspaper during the election. You split the, Hindu, Maitais and Christian tribal. जहाँ भी वो जाएगा, you polarize society like this. You thrive on that. And we don't see this.
What message would you like to give to the people of Manipur, and
No, I think the
what
people-
request to the
I think,
central government?
right now, I think I think without me telling them, a lot of people started questioning about what is our place in this country. And it's very unfortunate. All that my appeal to them is understand what this country is all about, what it is capable of, and then reflect it genuinely and take ethical positions to save your dignity and your life. That's the primary things for me. Do not take law into your own hands. I know your people are frustrated now, I can see. But don't take law into their hands. There are people, we need dialogue with the rest of the country. I mean, a lot of people don't understand this. So we are here. You understand in the last 3 years what has happened. In the rest of the country, I know there are lots and lots of people. Once you talk it out, they will understand. And I hope that in the days to come, until unless we change this mindset, and I think that is where we should come in now. I think they need to defend themselves, but in such a way that you should liberate yourself in your mind, your way you look at it. My appeal is that do not take laws into your own hands. I understand. I mean, I'm looking at it, so I need to understand the pain and the frustrations. I can feel that one. And in the rest of the country, far more than the people of the state, rest of the country, if you have listened to me here, whichever biases, prejudices you have it, please think it over. CDC sawal se puch dijiye. Communal violence is in the blood of India. We have enough, but you don't segregate, normalize segregation like this. There are Indian security forces, which according to the constitutional schemes, you are supposed to protect the life and property of citizens. Insofar as Manipur is a citizen of this country, it needs to be protected. Manipur Police, CRPF, BSF, Indian Army, all are part of the Indian state. They need to work in coordinations as a legitimate institution of the Indian state under the constitution of the country. This understanding must come. And so immediately, once you have this clarity, automatically things will fall in line. You will know how to. It's very disturbing, security person breaking CCTV camera, firing tear gas in schools and hospitals, breaking vehicles which is parked inside the house, caught on camera. You try to put yourself. This is also where the same mindset is coming in. Once you are under a very terrible pressure like this, those Jawans on the ground, with that kind of a consciousness, and once you are pressed, then their capacity to think straight will become a big challenge for them. That's why this violence, excessive violence, including by Manipur police. Once you are under this kind of a pressure, there's a confusion created by the political class, not taking appropriate decision at appropriate time. So the security forces will suffer on the ground, will aggravate these images of breaking cars in which is parked inside the house, firing tear gas in the house, in the hospital, stopping and beating up ambulance driver and attendants. Does it get a space in national newspaper? Did you get it? Once you don't report, they are made invisible, non-event. You are talking to me. So it becomes an event. Even this conversations, people will say, I mince no words, that's what I said. For me, these technical questions, this is the truth. This is the truth. I'm asking anybody who listens to me, do you think that this violence would have allowed had it been in the heart of India called Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, UP and Bihar? If you think that they would have allowed to happen it like that, let's see that.
Have you met the Prime Minister lately on the issue?
He doesn't even see his own chief ministers. Who am I? I am a small fry.
It is, after this Bishnupur incident, is there any delegation that's going to visit the Prime Minister?
I
and
don't know. I
put
don't
your
know.
plea there?
I mean, I'm sorry to say that, you know, the way I understand, both as a student of social science, as someone who is involved in politics, our Prime Minister is a huge disappointment. It's a huge disappointment. And I don't know, their thinking is like election. You know, ek bolta hai na ki politicians think for the next election, whereas statesmen think for the next generations. These guys only think about 29 ki election cases jitna hai, Bengal ko cases jitna hai. They were trying to do the same thing, remember? They could have amended that article to say that wo jo census wala jo ek clause tha, usko hata ke, if you have already women reservation, you can introduce within this 543. वो नहीं करेगा. Surreptitiously you put up to enhance the your seats in the areas where they do better, particularly in this Hindi belt. Lot of scholars are now pointing it out. क्योंकि वो डर गया. 29 के इलेक्शन बाय वो जो एक women's reservation bill का शिल लेके आया, और सचमुच रिजर्वेशन देना चाहिए चाहते तो one line amendment to that constitution, जो सेंसस एंड डिलिमिटेशन की बात वाला जो एक लिखा हुआ ना 2023 का amendment में, उसको हटाओ तो immediately 29 में हो जाएगा within this 543. वो नहीं करेगा because they have tried surreptitiously push this क्योंकि they want to win. I'm telling you, I have said this yesterday in my press briefing in AICC headquarters. You know, thank God the oppositions have defeated a proposal which could have otherwise become the beginning of the end of the Indian Republic. Down the line. Just as Julius Caesar crossing Rubicon became the beginning of the end of the Roman Republic, if this subversion which they were trying in Parliament, had it been successful, then that would be like Julius Caesar crossing Rubicon for the Indian Republic. Perpetual electoral subversion, democratic processes, divide between, you know, alienation between South India and North India and my small states, just to capture your vote in areas where you, in the long run, you have socio-economic profile में differences आ गया अभी South India and North India में, उसमें आप political कभी एक dimension लगा के रखोगे, in the long run, that will be, that's what I said. This could have been the beginning of the end of the Indian Republic. Thankfully, the opposition unities have defeated that. It's a completely anti-national move. मैं ये क्यों कह रहा हूँ? कि इसके दिमाग में election ही चलता है. You understand? So people के suffering में थोड़ा sensitivity होता. Already we have a problem about Northeast position in the Indian state. किताबों में आप history से निकाल के रखते हो. The children grew up. I've said this. जैसे कि European used to draw maps and they used to mark Jerusalem, Venice, etc. And rest is nameless. It is exactly like all the books, 1980s, you know, when I was doing research. Delhi, Kolkata, Northeast is blank slate, tabula rasa. History is absent. You don't know anything about that. You understand? So it's a long process. 75 years की time में भी ना, after independence, we're still talking about Northeast के history, Indian textbook में होना चाहिए बोला, नहीं? So it is a huge problem, challenge in front of us. This crisis should be a learning curve for all of us. If we think about the long-term growth of this country and maintain unity and integrity of this country, this crisis in Manipur should not be taken as some insignificant small state affairs. This reveals what India has been, how India has been conceptualized. Otherwise, we should form a JPC, make this inquiry committee report comes out fast, ensure that police, CRPF and army works in coordinations to impose the constitution. And the Prime Minister must also lead as the leader of this country, say sorry, express grief over this death and destructions, and not only that, do the needful to ensure that these things is resolved. It will not, if you have this, it will not take even 1 month. Things will be normalized.
Thank you so much, sir, for sparing time for us.
Thank you.
This is Sunita Arya Jha signing off for News 9.